Thank you, and thank you to the panelists. Particularly thank you to Aranda for inviting myself and the others here and organising this together with Transport Events. I think it is a great opportunity for us to share the experience regionally. Our organisation has been in place for well over 100 years. It's had different names and obviously different CEOs over that time, but our role has continued to evolve. And since taking over in 2017, I've done a couple of things to most certainly enter that area of political debate about lifting the profile of ports. Captain Subramaniam mentioned it before in terms of the lack of profile, and Captain Subramaniam is quite correct in terms of lack of understanding by the public. And that has been an objective of mine, together with broadening our relationship, which I'll talk about very briefly. I'm very mindful of time, Mark, so I won't labour it. I'll move straight on to the next slide, if I may. And the next slide gives you a bit of an indication as to who we are. We are not a government body. Therefore, we are not owned by government. We don't comply necessarily with government's wishes in terms of their policy objectives. A number of my members run state-owned ports, quite a large number, in fact, from the various states around the country, together with members from privately owned ports. But we have that flexibility, which allows us to speak out when a voice needs to be heard. And we have the ability to talk to media, and we do so in a fearless and frank way to ensure that there is an understanding. So the concerns that were raised, the contributions that have been made so far today highlight the fact that we do have an opportunity to lift our awareness to the wider community, our existence, our role, and what that means for the future in terms of a sustainable and efficient future. We are gateways to trade. You can see there on that list that historically the organisation has always been Australia focused, therefore its name denotes Ports Australia. But a couple of years ago, I was very fortunate to attend an IAPH conference overseas where I saw the various regions of the world cooperating together. They ate together, they spent time together, they knew each other's problems. And when I came back to Australia afterwards, we all spoke about sustainability, but what I said was, how do we make and how do we create a voice of sustainability for our region, not with Australia being the lead role, being just one of the various players, one of the various actors representing our Pacific region. And of course, I recognised the historical roots that existed between many ports and our New Zealand counterparts. And we wanted to reach out to New Zealand and to benefit from their experience and understanding, as we've just heard from Bim, in the relationship that exists with the Cook Islands, and equally that relationship that exists across the South Pacific, and to work with our New Zealand counterparts. And to do that, Ports Australia took a decision that it would open its doors to international associate members. Whilst we can't do the advocating with their local government or local business communities or indeed local media on local issues, what we can do is share experience and knowledge and help one another across the region. By doing so, ensure that our voices collectively come together. So when the COVID menace eventually, hopefully, will not disappear, but at least is such that we can manage travel overseas again, that our members, be they from the Cook Islands, be they Aranda Kotawala from the Solomons or from Fiji or Nauru or New Zealand or Australia, we go to these events mindful of the discussion that's occurring across the region and being in a position to advocate on behalf of the region, let alone advocate on behalf of our own country. And it's numerous voices speaking to numerous levels of government, both here domestically, but then also potentially internationally, that we are hopeful that our voices will be most certainly heard. Can I get you to move on to the next slide, please? Our organisation is about capturing the knowledge that exists in the port sector. I do not have a history in the port sector other than 20 years ago. I was very fortunate to be the New South Wales Shadow Minister for Ports that introduced me to the sector. And despite the fact that I moved on to other portfolios, I never moved away from this sector. I maintained that relationship and that understanding of the issues such that when a vacancy occurred, I put my hand up for the job and I was fortunate enough to be given it. The true value in our organisation, whilst it's good to talk to the CEOs and talk to them about the investment that they're making and their great visions in terms of, sustainability for the future and great management plans and investment plans that they have in the ports, and that's great because that's about jobs and about shaping the organisation for the future. It's in our working groups you'll see on this list. These working groups capture the areas of expertise that exist within the Australian port landscape, and it's no different anywhere in the world. This could apply anywhere. But we have these working groups and we have representatives of every port on those working groups. We also have representatives of the associate membership that we have in Ports Australia. Richard, one of the panelists here today, his organisation, a very well respected, not only here and domestically in Australia, but internationally, GHD, he and his organisation are members of a number of these working groups. It's about bringing that expertise together. And this is where the Pacific Challenge was paramount in our thinking in regards to opening up our membership of the organisation. It was to provide a pathway for the New Zealand and the Pacific nation ports to become involved in these working groups, to be able to share that experience. Tragic in some cases, we've heard earlier about islands being lost, but then also to be able to build a working trust relationship where we can share knowledge. There's a lot of money being invested and has been historically invested in many of these sustainability challenges in Australia. We know that. We share them domestically, but what we're seeking to do and have sought to do with opening up and making it more inclusive of our Pacific neighbours is to share that knowledge across the region, to actually be able to build relationships. And what I'd hope to see is in the not too distant future, when we can travel across the region again, that representatives from the Pacific nation ports will be able to attend a couple of the key events that we have during the course of the year, where they'll be able to meet their counterparts in various Australian ports, other CEOs, and then start to build that relationship directly between those ports and those Pacific nations, where they can go directly to them and talk to them. You can see there on each of those working groups, they are absolutely critical for the operation of our port sector. Each one of them has highly skilled individuals, true professionals that are in there that know their industry like you and I know the backs of our hand. What we wanted to do is capture that knowledge and make that a critical part of where we shape the debate moving forward. And of course, the environment planning and sustainability working group that you see before you is but one, because each of these working groups now moving forward will all have a sustainability component to their meetings and their discussions, be it legal, be it logistics, be it industrial relations and human resources. Each one of them are captured within the United Nations sustainability goals. And what we have decided to do is to include sustainability in each and every one of them. So it permeates every level of our organisation in Australia. Next page, please. When I came back from the International Association Ports and Harbours Conference, I saw that need for us to bring together the Australian experience before we started to work on the second project that you can see there, which is a strategy development guide. There's no use working out where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And many of our ports have invested individually in many sustainability projects, but we needed to capture that. I needed to showcase that and bring that all together in one document so all of the Australian ports could look back to see what others had done. Many of them have done very well promoting it in the local media, but what I wanted to do was take something nationally to the national government, to actually be able to sit down with ministers and members of the opposition and to start to lift their awareness, not only of the port sector, but the investment that we are making in sustainability projects in the environments that not only do we work, but we live. And that was critical. That was then followed by the next document, which was developing a port sustainability strategy guide. All of these documents are available on their website. They're all free, but it's the strategy development guide that will take you through a step-by-step process. in terms of how do you start and how do you finish with a development project, realising, of course, that sustainability has no end. This one has been recognised by the International Association of Ports and Harbours World Port Sustainability Programme as a runner-up award and as a member organisation, not as an actual port authority like all of you, or most of you. As a member organisation, we're incredibly proud of what we've done is bring together the intellectual capital of all of that experience of our members and bring that together in the guide. The following piece you can see there, the Sustainability Hub, again, is available on our website. And we're now reaching out to our associate members such as GHD. We're reaching out to our Pacific Nation ports. We want them to put forward these sustainability projects that they have worked on and landed and showcase them. In the same way that the World's Port Sustainability Program has a hub available internationally, what we've tried to do is bring something together nationally and indeed regionally so we can showcase what we're doing. Give you an idea what we're doing now in terms of climate change as well as sustainability projects. We're embarking and have embarked upon a significant landscape analysis, a research work to look at some of the initiatives and some of the regulatory projects that are being considered around the world, both in the Americas, Europe and elsewhere, and bring that to the awareness of our board of directors so they can start to be across and aware of what is happening elsewhere around the world, such as, of course, our good captain, mentioned earlier, the vessel arrival system that we have here in Australia in a couple of ports, where that is going, because of course not only the economic output of it, the common sense of it, also the environmental impact of that project. We have a number of other things in train that we're looking at, be they shore power, be they emissions incentive schemes, a whole host of things. We're also looking at noise, because of COVID has, in our case, most certainly made people aware, as a lot of other ambient noise disappeared, they've become very aware of the noise coming from our ports. But we're not only looking at noise above the water, we're looking at noise below the water. And I'm very proud to say that quite a number of our New Zealand ports who have really led the way on this, who are, some of them are members, some of them are not members at this stage. We are really seeking their guidance in regards to where they've been on this journey, because noise is going to be an issue moving forward. There's no doubt about it. You can see there that, as I've said, sustainability is now part of all of our working groups to consider, and our genuine desire is to reach out across the Pacific, starting, of course, to our north with Papua New Guinea and reaching right across through into the PMTA to ensure that our region starts to collectively build a regional understanding of the challenges. Aranda spoke at our general meeting last year. It was great to hear from him and the experience of the Solomon Islands. I look forward to members of the PMTA, the Pacific Maritime Transport Alliance, hopefully being in attendance at our annual conference in March of next year. I want to hear from them on the stage. I want our members to hear what is happening across our region. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak today. I'll move to the last slide. The last slide is fairly straightforward. It shows you exactly how many ports we have across the region. So you can see that we have a very significant representation. The Australian coastline alone, not taking into consideration our friends from our Pacific nations, but our Australian coastline alone is well over 30,000 kilometres long. So needless to say, when we don't have COVID, I spend a lot of time moving around our ports, listening and talking to our members and bringing together our working groups, both in terms of a face-to-face concept, but also virtually. There is no excuse for any of our members not to be participating in the working groups, because if they can't get there physically, they can come there in a virtual platform the way we are today. Last slide, please. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Our contact details are there. Our website is there, and I'm very grateful for the chance to say a few words.